Hey guys, welcome to the Breaking Through podcast. I'm your host, Hector LaFacia, award winning author, inspirational speaker, producer, and counselor. And with me is my co host, Felix Cordero, a teacher's teacher and DJ. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you.
Right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Breaking Through is a compelling and inspiring topic focused podcast. It takes a deep dive into the lives of individuals who have overcome immense challenges and obstacles to achieve success. Each and every single episode features a different guest who share their personal journey of resilience, determination, perseverance, and hope. Listeners will hear stories of individuals who have faced poverty, addiction, trauma, secrets, disabilities, and other hardships, yet have managed to rise above their circumstances through candid interviews and heartfelt conversations. Guests share their stories, mindset shifts, and support systems that help navigate their difficulties. If you have a particular topic you'd like to hear about or would like to share your story, let us know. This is your show.
The idea of this podcast was to do something different and meaningful that'll stimulate and bring up emotions, which moves one to heal and change. So we aim to impact people's lives. We want to be your voice. Felix and I, we both have experiences in most of these topics that we'll be presenting. So it is important for us to bring them to light in a powerful way. For me, this is personal. For I know firsthand what holding on to secrets can do to the human psyche. And I wore many masks to hide the scars. But it gets real. And from here on in, observe when you're wearing a mask, why you picked it up, and learn how to be okay with just who you are, the way you are. So the time is now to put those demons to rest. We shared the light and it won't grow in the dark. So let's take this journey together. Okay. Today, we have a special guest with us, and her name is Raquel. Raquel, welcome to the show. Raquel Cruz. Welcome to the show, Raquel.
Thank you.
Good to have you. Raquel is a therapist at Bay Care Center. We're really glad to have you join us. Her husband is actually listening. I hope he's tuning in, and I just want to say hi, Nelson. Hope you're listening in. Okay, Raquel received a bachelor's and her first master's in human services from Springfield College. Is that right?
Yes.
And then you moved on. That was in Springfield, Massachusetts. And then you moved on to Project More. That's the
Mm,
alternative to incarceration program. Then you moved on to Sunrise Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center as a counselor and supervisor. Then you received your second master's in mental health. And now you're working on your master's level as a therapist at Bay Care Behavioral Center. So
yes.
you've been around. You're highly qualified. Amazing, amazing resume.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about this mental health stuff and the effects of sexual assault and trauma and the serious, because this is serious stuff, and we know it runs deep in our community and throughout the world. Most people don't even admit that they have this problem, or they don't even know, for quite sake, or they could just be in denial. And many years, it can take many years for it to root within, and the evidence of it begins to manifest at a later time. Would you say that's true?
That is very true.
Okay.
That is very true.
So, as with sexual assault, people are ashamed to talk about it. They tend to hold on to those secrets and the pain that it's costing them. And this can be very toxic, folks. So it creates confusion emotions and growing up, making bad decisions throughout the adolescence and adulthood. And we'll get into a little bit of that as well because I have that experience. And so I'm talking from experience because I could identify with that. Now, before we do that, can you define for us what is mental health? And behavioral wellness?
Sure. So mental health is a state of well-being, right? It's that affects us all. Affects our the how we think, how we feel, how we act, how we handle stress, how we communicate with others, how we relate to our significant others, our children, our neighbors. So it impacts all of that.
Okay. So tell us, what is Baycare, and what do you do there?
So Baycare Behavioral Health. Baycare is a huge bunch of hospitals, but I work for the Baycare Behavioral Health. Most of their hospitals are in Pasco County and Hillsborough County. I work in Pasco County with the behavioral health program, and I am what we call a FIT therapist, which is family intensive therapy. We work with parents who have gotten involved with the Department of Children and Services. Their children have been removed due to either mental health, substance use, or both. Some of the children have been born positive to substances, positive to alcohol, and now they have a case plan with the department, and they have to kind of work a case plan to be able to be reunified with their children.
So in your department, is it primarily for women and children, or are men part of it as well?
Is we do not see any of the children. We work with the moms and dads.
Okay. And did you see more women than men?
Yeah, I think that when families come to us, the program is offered to both mom and dad. The majority of our clients are women, but there are some men that come in and they do everything that they have to do to be able to get their children back.
So what's the process or the requirements to be there?
To be with our program FIT,
Yes.
you would have to have a substance use, mental health, or both, and your children have to be 10 and under. If your children are older, then you go to a different program from Baycare as well. But the children are older, so the requirements of getting them back are different for 10 and under than 10 and over.
So is it a residential program?
No, no, we do outpatient services. We do groups in our offices. They do random drug screens. I work out of their homes. So I do therapy in their home.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so usually, if they're minors, I know you deal with a lot of minors. How long are these children separated from their parents, more or less? How long can it take, the process?
The process can take up to a year,
And
depending on where mom and dad are. Let's say if their substance use is intensive, if they have to go into inpatient, that's usually 3 to 6 months. And then the process, everything else begins.
and are they placed in foster homes in the meantime? Where exactly are the children located?
So I don't work for the department, but I know that many of the children, the department tries to place in family care. When there is no family, then the children will be placed in foster homes.
Okay, so family care, let's get this straight. Is that someone in their direct family that can tend
A
to them and take care of
grandma,
them?
an aunt and uncle,
Okay.
a grandpa, yeah.
Okay. So in your experience, are women that come through the program, are they honest and open, talking about their rape or their accuser? And how deep do they get?
So not at first, right? They don't know me. They don't have, many of our clients have no reason to trust someone, right? So here I come and I say, hey, here I am. I'm coming from FIT, and we need to get some stuff situated for you. So the first few, I want to say few weeks, 4 6 weeks, it's just them trying to get to know who we are and trying to gain that trust. Um, a lot of things that we see is past trauma, trauma when they were children, domestic violence in their home, parents who use substances. They may have been part of the system themselves at one point in their lives where they were foster care children. Um, so that's mainly what we deal with is that. But yeah, it takes them a bit to kind of say, okay, this is what happened. This is what happened to me.
So I know it's an extremely touchy subject, but let's say for the women that who are raped, or even anyone who was raped, is it usually someone that they know, or is it a stranger most of the time?
Um, Believe it or not, the majority of the cases that we see are people that they know.
Yeah, it's quite sad.
When is in their childhood is either a father, a grandfather, an uncle, an older brother, and that's what we see. So these are secrets, right, that are kept
Yes.
in families that I have to say to my clients at one point or another, hey, I need you to know that we're only as sick as the secrets that we keep.
Wow.
Right. So we need to bring this out. We need to address it. A lot of times it's not something to do with actually um, pointing somebody out and saying, this is the person that did this, but them saying, this secret has been in my family for so long, and I'm not like the only one in this family who is keeping this secret. Right. So it's hard for them to come to us as adults and say, let me tell you where I grew up.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Is it ever recommended that the patient address their accuser or confront them in any way?
That has to be kind of like a personal choice. I would be with my client, whatever decision they make is going to be okay with me, right? Um, but you have to understand that they're not only confronting an abuser, many times they're confronting a whole family.
Wow, that's deep. Do you actually see women that have children from a family member that, that coming in that
I,
couldn't have an abortion maybe and carrying
I
it?
I do not have a client like that now. I did um, when I was in New Haven, had a client who did have actually two children from her dad.
Wow.
So and that was it was hard for her to even acknowledge, that so people knew. Like her thing was, I don't want anybody to know.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, because that's deeper. I mean,
Hmm.
that's a secret that people take to their graves.
Exactly.
And that's what we're talking about. Unmasking, because the only way that we can heal is if we let it go, if we shed it, we bring it to light and talk about it, because that leads to so many other things, and you know what? That cycle just picks up with the children.
Yes.
Now everybody's in secrecy. And so it becomes like a normal thing, and a hard barrier to break through. So
The
what
thing,
your experience with that?
so we find that these secrets are kept for so long that people begin to self-medicate, right? So a lot of people who we see with these awful family secrets are the ones who are self-medicating, self-medicating for mental health, self-medicating to forget, right? Self-medicating to be able to deal with some of the stuff that's coming towards them. So we have to, okay, let's talk about what we're doing. Let's talk about what we need to do to kind of help you with your mental health, your substance use, and kind of get you ready to address this trauma.
Okay. So if you can be specific, what are some of the traumas that these patients or children actually deal with? Uh, Surface stuff and the treatment they get. I know you're talking about the counseling stuff, but
Mhm.
what are the most traumatic experiences that some of them are telling you?
Um, so so we have something that's called an ACE score, is adverse childhood experiences. It's a questionnaire that we give to every single one of our clients. It's just 10 simple questions. Um, they go from, did an adult in your home ever humiliate you? They ever hit you? Were your parents divorced? Were your parents, did anybody experience an alcohol substance use problem? Did a parent go to jail? Like, and there's just 10 questions that everybody answers, and it gives you a score, right? From 1 to 10. We see that people who have a score of 5 and more are the ones who are really struggling with their mental health, their significant others, healthy relationships. Um, you know, Technically, I believe that alcohol is the biggest killer in substances, but alcohol is legal and is socially acceptable. But
Yeah.
many people struggle with alcohol problems, and we don't see that as a problem. So
Yes.
you get an alcohol, somebody is having problems with alcohol who is also raising children in an unhealthy relationship, and now you have a lot of trauma to these children.
So,
Mm.
so when they take this assessment, do you think they're genuinely truthful about all the questions they're answering, or you think they're afraid, or they may be hiding things because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble as well?
So the first time we do it, I know that they're not going to be ready to just answer these truthfully,
Yes.
right? So 3 months, 4 months into when we start working, we do it again, and that's usually when we get like the truth.
So you're prepared for that. You actually know this.
Oh yeah, yeah. Again, remember, life hasn't given a lot of people uh a chance to trust, right? There's a lot of
Mm.
things that are happening to our adults, to our teenagers, to our children. They don't trust anyone. They Why would they trust me? They don't know me, right? So I'm not pushing to say, this is not true. What Even if I know, I'm not going to push them on that.
Yeah. And you know what? We see that happening a lot in minorities and urban communities, right? It's like,
Yep.
I, I don't know about you, but I think you could relate with this. My my father mostly, not my mother, but my father always said, what happens here stays here. And he was an alcoholic and he was abusive. So we
Hmm.
lived with the scars of what he was doing because we were afraid to say something so that, he doesn't take it out on us. And so that secret, it's bad. So yeah, we're not comfortable talking about what
Right.
happens, especially
And
if you're told.
that still stands now, though. What happens here stays here. Mental health is still 2024 is still a big taboo in our communities. So is substance use. So is mental health is a big one. So whatever
Absolutely.
happens here stays here, puts many children in danger.
So overall, from your experience, what is the success rate?
We work with a lot of women, and I have to say that our dependency judges are very trained in domestic violence, right? Trauma. So they see it and they know it, right? So when we go before them, they know, honey, and they'll tell them, they said, listen, what happened to you. Do you do anything? You just need to work through what you need to work through to get your babies back. Usually 12 months is the time that the courts will give them. Um, Usually by 12 months, they're done with us. They've started their reunification process. They've been clean and sober. They're going to sober meetings. They have a sponsor. They're still addressing their mental health, taking medication, like doing all that to just make sure that they get their kids back. However, there are people that are just not ready, right? No matter what the court says, no matter what we say, they're just not ready. And when that happens, then, children get adopted out, children, go permanent guardianship with family members.
And the children that do go back to their families, do they
Mhm.
continue to get counseling? Because I know they're pretty much scarred for life, some of them.
They do, right? So, like, I can only speak for Pasco, but here in Pasco, they have a program that's geared towards children. It's called Pasco Kids First. So children who've been traumatized or physically abused or sexually abused continue to get um, services through them. Baycare also has an outpatient services for children. So the children are recommended to begin the process of counseling and all that, because remember, these children have never had any kind of trauma. Their first trauma was when the sheriff's department and the Department of Children came and removed them from their family.
Mm. So you mentioning children. Is it difficult to get a child to admit that, he or she was sexually molested?
So to be honest with you, I have never worked with children. Children are they're it takes somebody special, like your co-host there. Like, you need to have a calling to be a teacher,
Yes.
right? You need to have a calling to be able to sit down with a child when they're telling you all these horrible things, right? So here we use Pasco Kids First. Pasco Kids First, they are the experts on the children.
Yeah, in counseling, what we tell people uh, to soften them up, to get them open, we remind them this is not your fault.
Exactly.
And that is such key. That's when I say that to them, that's when they start to cry. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the beginning of a breakthrough. And that is why we title our podcast Breakthrough, because these are
Mm-hmm.
all the things that we do to try to get through to somebody, and is
Yeah,
so effective in counseling. Once you get them open to cry, and then you start to patch them up. We patch them up
exactly.
together, and they grow that confidence, and they start, now you can get more out of them. Well, who molested you? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes on, and the
Yeah.
floodgates open. So that is a tool we use. But if there are minors in there, how long are they separated? I mean, because okay, you said you have minors that you guys deal with. So how long, or you don't deal with? How long are these children separated from their parents? Because I know, you
It
have.
really It really depends on how fast the parents are making when there's behavioral change that can be seen. Parents who stopped using substances, who got into, you know, substance abuse groups, completed that, are working with a sponsor, are attending meetings, are serious about their sobriety. Sometimes, I mean, we've seen parents be reunified with their children in 6 months. We've seen parents reunified in 8 months. So it really depends on what the progress that has been made.
Yeah. So as a teacher, we're trained to detect and pretty much figure out sometimes when children are abused. I've seen it many times, and it was my legal obligation to always report it, even if I wasn't 100% sure.
Hmm.
It's a legal obligation. If we assume it, if we think it, if it makes logical sense, we had to report it. And I'm glad that we have that law, because we've been able to save many children who were just too afraid, or they even knew they were being abused. They just didn't want to get, mom, dad, uncle in trouble, or they were threatened. say, hey, you ever open your mouth,
Yeah.
they're gonna take you away, they're gonna put you away, and these kids are terrified to ever open their mouth. So, as a family member, though, what are some of the things that we can do to help someone which displays these symptoms of mental health or abuse as a family member?
So I think get really acquainted with maybe your community mental health services. Know where they are, know what you need to do, know that how can I bring them here for help? How can I protect them if they're having some kind of episode? Who do I call? Right. So you need to make sure that you know these things beforehand. Because I'm a firm believer that just out of nowhere, we just realize somebody has a mental health issue. That doesn't happen.
Yes.
Right. We've seen it. We've seen the behavior. We've seen maybe the depression or the out of control behavior, or so we need to, as a family, right? You're talking family. We need to be able to talk about that. We all need to be able to talk about that, and be okay with talking about mental health.
And absolutely. So, what do you say is the percentage of children who have gone through these crises, these traumas? What is the percentage of them doing the same as adults to their children or their family, or harming themselves or using drugs? Is it a high percentage?
It is. I don't know the percentage now, but I can tell you that 99.9% of the clients that I've seen, even the ones that I'm seeing now, have had domestic violence as children in their homes. They've had one or two parents who've had substance use or alcohol problems. They've seen fights. They've seen dads hitting moms. Um, they've seen a lot, right? They've seen parents. They've walked into parents. We've even had parents right now whose children walked in and found them overdosing, and they're the ones who've had to call a 911 and to save their parents' life. That's a trauma for that child.
For sure.
So these things happen. I know that we want to think that it doesn't happen every day, but it does, right? Here in our county, we have a huge amount of people dying from opiate overdoses. So they've done things like put Narcan everywhere. Narcan in communities, you can get Narcan for free. You're taught how to use it because this happened.
So what are some of the early signs that we commonly see in mental health, and how difficult is that to diagnose?
So we need to sort of look at our children, right? These explosive behaviors that they have, like they lose their temper for nothing, and they're slamming doors, and they can't control their emotions, and we need to be able to take a look at that. And if we think that our children may need to see someone, then we need to make that happen, right? Because it's our job. Teachers do it all the time, right? They see the behaviors, they report the behaviors. Something is not right. So let's get a hold of these parents. Let's see, if they can take this child somewhere where they can be spoken to or assessed to see what's going on. But I think that and I'm talking about my culture, I think that in our culture, if we see a child behaving like that, especially if it's a boy, we'll say, oh, he's just a boy. That's what boys do.
Correct.
The problem that I found is that men will be men, and men will drink beer together even if the men are 50, 25, or 5. So those type of cultural beliefs really are leading our teenagers, young adults into some serious problems as they get older.
So what if it's HDHD? How do you say it?
There's a few of them. There's
H
ADHD. There's so
ADHD.
many things that they immediately want to prescribe medicine to these kids. Many
Yeah,
times they don't need the medicine. Many times there's a deeper problem. There's something else going on.
yeah. So we as parents are our children's advocates, right? So if we don't feel like this person is correct, you need to do your homework. There's a lot of things out there that can help you um, teach your child or get his emotions under control without medication. If that's the way you want to go, there's a lot of things out there that can help you do that.
But is the actual graph or diagnose that you can differentiate those two illnesses, mental health and the HDHD?
Um, well, if they go and have an assessment, like this psychiatrist will have to diagnose out of what we call the DSM-5, right? So it's the book that we all use to diagnose, right? So they have to meet certain criteria to be able to be diagnosed with certain things. However, again, we're parents, so we're their advocate. And if we don't think that this is what it is, or we don't think that our children should go on medication, then we still need to find another way. We just can't let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a teacher, like I said, from my experience, I reached out to many parents in the past, and it's true what you said. It's mostly the males. They say, "Yeah, he's just a boy. He's just
Mm-hmm.
growing up. He just acts that way. There's nothing wrong with him." They refuse to take any advice. They refuse for me to try to offer them help. It's like an insult. Like basically,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of curse me out sometimes. They get really upset with me, and it's really difficult. And I would say the minorities, the Latinos,
Mm-hmm.
the men, they have this standard of an ego. I would say is an ego and some sort of stereotype that they're supposed to be the toughest no matter what, and there's nothing could go wrong with them. You agree
The
with
thing
that?
is that these fathers are also raising sons, right? With that are going to have the same belief, the same behaviors. So we see a lot of times we see this if I have a dad who has a domestic battery charge, right? And we look into what his upbringing was. He has a dad that had a battery charge and a grandfather who abused his wife, right? So we see this happening over and over again, and we can only say, hey, men will be men, but so long before somebody has to take a stand.
Absolutely. So when this happens and the parent or legal guardian they fail to comply or they decide to just walk away, so what happens to these kids?
The department will find a place, right? So if they have grandparents, aunts and uncles, any family that will take them in, then they will be either adopted to the family member, or they can be what they call permanent guardianship, which will then give the parents some time to continue to try to get themselves together, to then they can go and reopen a case to try to get their children back.
And what is the age limit? When do they age out?
Um, I think the age out for the department is 18.
So the question is, so once this child turns 18, because he's still a child, I know they consider them an adult. Are they just all right, goodbye, or is there any help for them?
So, again, I don't work for the department, but what I know is that these children are offered to go to college, so the state is supposed to be making sure that they can go to college, that they do have a place they to live. Some of them just stay on with the families that they've been with all this time.
Well, that's a lot of information, and this is horrifying for these children,
It
and
is.
I suppose many of them are lost to the system. Families and loved ones torn apart and brokenhearted as this cycle keeps manifesting, and the mental disease continues to ravish our communities. And that's the sad part because I see it all the time. Another child suffers due to no fault of their own. So sad. And you know what's even sad, which I see so much of, is when a child is born addicted and is in the hospital detoxing because of their parents' use. Now, if you have not ever seen that, I'm telling you, that is a heartbreaker. You know, you could just sit there and sob because you got a helpless little child detoxing in front of your eyes. And you know what? This is just the reality. This is what happens.
Mhm.
Uh, are there any statistics of that? You know that these children, any percentage of these children that continue to repeat the same cycle or fail relationships, like seeking love or something like that? Because I know when they're going through this type of stuff, the women mostly from a young age that they're into drugs and they have these children and then they have more children. Is there like a percentage of this cycle that goes on, a success rate or something like that? Because they get into failed relationships, they get back into drugs, you know, seeking love in all the wrong places. Is there some type of statistic or percentage of what you've seen or have experienced?
So I like worldwide, obviously I don't have any percentages like that. I know that our clients, we continue to have contact with them even after they're closed out of our program, right? So they'll call and they'll say, hey, this is where I am now. Look at my children, look how big they've gotten. And when they are even going to relapse, they reach out to us, right? Because our team we have a nurse, we have a peer, we have a therapist. So they they worked with a team for so long that when something goes wrong, they'll reach out back to us and say, I need help.
Oh, and all of that is logged in, so you do have some type of record of this.
Yeah, yeah. The FIT program is really everywhere in Florida. In every county, it has a FIT program. They're just run out of like different agencies. Ours here in Pasco is run out of the Baycare Health. Um, so Baycare's a huge organization. It's got a whole bunch of hospitals, a bunch of clinics, and all that. But here in Pasco County, it's run out of the Baycare. Is run out of any other agencies in other counties. But we all do the same thing. We all work with the parents who are struggling with substance abuse and mental health, or trying to get their children back from the state.
Yeah, you know, I posed that question, and because I could identify with that so much. You know, growing up, I was always bounced around as a child, right? And you know, I came up and of course, I was a failure. I was scheduled to fail. I didn't have the right guidance, and I always grew up seeking my mother's love, right? And so, like with every woman I met as an adult or teenager, uh, I tried to find my mother's love in them, only to
Mhm.
realize that many years later, I was just using and abusing, running because I could never, no one could ever compare to that.
Mhm.
So I broke a lot of hearts in search of that, which I later had to seek help for. And
Mhm.
even today, I find myself comparing, still wanting my mother's love, right? So, I still live, with that void within, and no matter how long, the scars are still felt. So I could understand, firsthand what some of these women and men actually go through when they're torn apart early on, and how difficult that is to bridge them back.
Yeah.
And some never get bridged back.
No, you're
Right?
right.
They keep repeating the same thing, and the cycle continues to their children because of their behaviors, their attitudes, and there's no lesson to be learned there. And so the kids get lost. And that is sad. And we're hoping to actually make a difference with that. So, Raquel, you know what? Thank you so much. We appreciate your service and the difference that you're making. I mean, it takes a lot. It really takes a lot. And I'm sure, like I did palliative care in my adult life,
Mhm.
right? I worked with end of life patients, and my thing at being at a hospital was uh, trying to get them to accept their last days, to make it a comfortable ending, and and that was so difficult because they never heal from the beginning of what they needed to put closure to. So I know how easy it is to get burnt out, and I hope that you stay strong, stay compassionate, and keep making a difference in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a special person to do what you do. Raquel, do you have any closing words that you would like to say?
I think that one of the things that I would like to say is that in my perfect world, right, in my perfect ideal world, substance use and mental health would not be criminalized, right? They need help. Putting them in jail is not going to help anything, and it's not going to help a family. So we just need to make sure we stay um, aware of what's going on with us, our families, our neighbors. Something is going wrong. We just need to know that we need to act. We need to react. We need to say, "Hey, do you need help? I see you're struggling. Let me help you."
Absolutely. Thank you so much for everything you do. And we really appreciate you. We appreciate the listeners for tuning in. We've come to the end of our show. Please be sure to join us next week, Saturday at 1 p.m. We're going to have a special guest, Hector Mestre. He is a producer, he is a special engineer for most of the salsa artists that you know today. And there's a reason we have him on the show. We're not just going to have him because of the music he does, but we're going to leave that until next Saturday. But Raquel Cruz, once again, can you tell us any links or any numbers we can call if we need to contact someone?
Someone like, what do you mean? Like a
If
mental
someone's in
health?
trouble, we see someone that's in need, or even if we need help ourselves from being domestically abused, or we just need help. Sometimes we just need help. We need to call a number. It's not 911 that we call because they're just gonna probably hang up on us and tell us it's not an emergency. So where should we call? Who should we call or contact?
If you there if you call 211 and you say I need a mental health services, they'll give you in your county everything that you need. Domestic violence, they'll give you all the numbers that you need. Um,
211. 211.
yes, yep. And you tell them what you need, and they'll give you all that information, their numbers, where you can go for help, all of that.
Okay. Uh, I like to close with a quote from my book titled No Regrets the Journey. Uh, and this is one of my favorite quotes. I believe it was on page 91 or 93. I am that eagle with tattered wings that never flew, but now soar. Nobody would say, look, that eagle has ugly wings. No, they would say, look at that eagle. It is a miracle that it is still alive and rising.
Mm.
Thank you, Raquel, and thank you all for tuning in. And remember, we are spiritual beings having human experiences. So put your higher power first, and all will work out. All will work out. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
again.
much. See you next week.
Bye, Raquel.
Bye,
Bye,
Raquel.
guys.